Okay, right, next function we're going to be looking at here is the add world space noise to gradient. This takes a black and white input, whatever that might be, linear gradient or world space or vertex painting, and it adds noise to that gradient based on world space. So as I move this texture around, you can see the noise there is applied in world space. And this is a really good way of breaking up edges. If you've got something like vertex painting where you've got a really low poly model, you haven't got many vertices to play with, I believe this plane is just 4 verts. That doesn't matter because we can use a world space noise to sort of break that up and add to that. So it means you don't need to import really high poly models to use vertex painting. You can have a very simple basic model and then add detail at the texturing stage, if that's worth it for you, depending on what you're doing. Given myself 3 different options for what kind of contrast we're using and a contrast input. So just went over these different contrasts in the offset contrast video, but basically depending on whether we're using cube contrast, a exponential power contrast, or offset contrast, we're going to get slightly different results depending on what we're doing, and we're using an input gradient in this case of defaulting to a linear gradient. If I change to, let's say, a diamond gradient or something like that, that should give us a interesting result. We have a contrast control, and we can control how much contrast we want to add, and this is in world space noise, so I can't move this plane. But if I adjust the noise size, default here is 128. Noise size. You can see we're getting a breaking up of that edge quite nicely. If I change to 64, we're going to get slightly higher resolution, 32. The lower the size of the noise, the more kind of fidelity to that edge, but the more it's going to repeat as well. So the more you're going to start seeing tiling. And there you are, you can start seeing it really badly at those low numbers. So you want a nice balance between edge fidelity that works for the material you're making and the tiling that you might see. So works quite nicely. You can also override the noise texture. So I believe the one we're using in here is this one. This is default noise. So this is just a simple low res clouds noise. But whatever noise you use is going to have an impact, obviously, on the final material, as well as obviously the contrast mode, etc. Note that the contrast input is the same for any of the contrast outputs, but the scales are different, and so offset contrast and cube contrast work with 0 being no contrast. And values over 0 working by adding contrast, whereas the power contrast works with 1 being no contrast, just due to the way that's set up. So as you're swapping between your contrasts, you may also need to adjust the value. But yeah, useful function, adding noise to low res gradients. Very good for vertex painting, but a few other applications as well.